It's Monday on Your View. Welcome to the show. I am Morayo Afolabi Brown. As always, I have the ladies with me. Hello, Tokwe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
How was your weekend?
What did I do over the weekend? I didn't do anything over this weekend.
What did you watch?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I watched this movie another movie about drug abuse and how the pharmaceutical industry perpetuates what they do and urging us to be more careful about how we get addicted to drugs and choosing to go the model of lifestyle modification over reliance on drugs. So now it's a tough journey, but the drugs that provide you palliative, which means it's not solving the problem, you're going to get hooked on it. I've tried some slimming precautions and they work, and when I stopped, I added back. So it's a signal to the fact that anything that is giving you quick results is not going to give you long-term results. Right. So let's begin to go the long haul. But I'm good.
Makeup is really beautiful. You look really nice.
Yeah, I did it myself.
Nice. How are you doing, Damola? How was your weekend?
Very well, thank you. I woke up with body pains this morning, and I was wondering, did I fight in my dreams? Then I remembered that I just resumed my workout session, so my personal trainer grilled me this weekend, and I didn't feel it immediately, but when I woke up this morning, it was like a truck rammed into me. Right. But yeah, it's all for good.
How you doing, Mariam? Distinguished author, published author too.
Okay.
How you doing? How's
Published author. We're good. We're selling. We're pushing. Our children are back in school. Well, the event went well. Remember, there was a vultures. IVAD.
Did you post anything about it?
Yes. Well, I posted to say that I will be on it, and so we had a conversation, very good conversation, good to have other people, and then you learn from people. And also, children are back in school today.
Yeah.
Exciting times. Maybe it will just reduce the stress at home, constantly screaming and shouting around, for the children. But I also watched something interesting. It was a documentary on, how people live long, and it was not about medicine.
I watched that too.
Yes.
I watched that too.
No, it's not about drugs and whatever, just your lifestyle, that you're eating healthy, you're walking a lot, and how he was able to take that research and then replicate it in a community. And I thought, that's it. I don't just want to learn things. Yes. I just don't want to learn things. I want to be able to see how I can make a reality somewhere. So I thought it was interesting.
Good. I'll watch it. I have some ideas that just came to me while you're talking about. I'll share with you privately. But cool. Yeah, I had a few speaking engagements. I was at JCI, a co-event on Saturday. I got an award. Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure being there. I was a panelist at a conversation concerning branding. And it was really good just to see how the Your View brand has grown, how we sustained it, if it was deliberate or how we started it. So it was really exciting to share some of our own journey with them. But I'm really happy. Thank you for having me. Sunday, I know I went somewhere. I can't remember, but...
And then the kids are back in school.
And the kids are back in school. I took the kids to the first one has gone to secondary school, big girl. Daddy has sorted out the second school, so we're happy. Okay, let's go on a quick break. When we return, we'll look at the front pages of the papers. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
All right, we're going to start with The Nation. TUC snubs NLC strike call. Flood risk rises in Lagos, Nasarawa, Bayelsa, and coastal communities. Kaduna hires 7,000 vigilantes to battle bandits. 9 killed in Ogun, Osun crashes. Tinubu targets global capital in India. Marketers, why we can't break NNPCL's import monopoly. Interesting. Illegal miners get 30-day ultimatum to vacate sites. NMA caution health workers on incessant strikes. People's performance to determine teachers' promotion in Ondo. All right, let me start with our president's trip to India. So our president will be leaving today for New Delhi for the G20 summit, where issues of economic development will be discussed. He's going along with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, obviously, a few of the other ministers, Minister of Finance, as Wale Edun, and Minister of Communication Innovation, that's Mr. Bosun Tijani, amongst others. He's also going with Nigeria's top industrialists and billionaires who will be going with him. The idea really is to see how we can collaborate with other industrialists from India and how we can help in direct investment into Nigeria. According to the report in The Nation, They'll be leaving today, and they're hoping that the G20 summit will be on Saturday and Sunday. Although Nigeria would love to be a member of the G20 summit, but according to this report, they have to review the benefits of being a member, and hopefully that they can then consider applying for that. But we're hoping that the meetings they have with these industrialists from India can give some kind of insights to what they can do together about both nations. Our president will be speaking also, be giving a keynote address at the Nigerian-India Roundtable and the Nigeria-India Business Conference in New Delhi.
That's a very good one. We have similarities with them, and I think it will be interesting to learn how they are doing their own thing successfully.
Yeah.
The enemy.
Okay.
The NMA, that's the Nigerian Medical Association president. His name is Uche Roland Ujima. He has cautioned his fellow doctors against the embarking on frivolous strike. He said that he understands the need to build a progressive health sector, but that it would require the health professionals exercising restraint. That instead of them going on strike, each time they have issues with the government, they should, there are better ways to handle the challenges. He had a conversation. He was also appreciating the president on the recent upward review of the consolidated salaries of the medical structure. And he also appreciated the fact that they have appointed appointing a medical professional into the Federal Executive Council. So he's appreciating the president for what they've done, while he's urging his colleagues to reduce the strikes being carried out by them. Then he appealed that a few medical officers have been abducted, kidnapped. And he was appealing with the abductors that they should have mercy on the grandmother, especially within Cross River States, Ekanem Philip Ephraim. And he was asking that they should have mercy on the grandmother and bring her back safely in one piece, who is the grandmother of the person that was kidnapped.
Hope she gets home safe. So we have IPMAN, that's the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria. They are alleging that lack of access to Forex, that's foreign exchange and price control, have forced them to abandon the initial attempt at importation of petrol. The vice president of IPMAN, Abubakar Meigandi, had said that he alleged that NNPCL depots have refused to sell petrol to IPMAN, that's the independent marketers, noting that the rate at which marketers were loading the products from depots has reduced. They also said that they used to load where there's now, the way they used to load there is now reducing. NNPCL also refused to give us allocation. They have reduced the way they had been giving allocation to marketers. It's also saying that NNPCL can come up, only NNPCL can come up with the PMS marketers, can come up with the PMS. Marketers cannot buy the PMS because of the price and foreign exchange. Most of the marketers are not getting the foreign exchange from the banks, so everybody relies now on NNPCL. So the initial idea that it is fully deregulated and the international marketers would be able to import, they're unable to do it because of these two reasons. Yeah.
Okay. So the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Mr. Dele Alake, has said that there will be no hidden place for illegal miners. And he said he's giving them a 30-day ultimatum to formally join an institutionally recognized miners corporation to formalize their participation in the sector or quit the industry. He also released a 7-point agenda for developing the ministry. He said it would include the creation of Nigerian Solid Minerals Corporation, joint ventures with mining multinationals. He also mentioned that there will be big data on specific priority minerals, which is gold, coal, limestone, and all that. Yes, the 30-day ultimatum that I mentioned earlier. And then he also said that there will be mines surveillance task force and mine police. He also mentioned comprehensive review of all mining licenses and the creation of 6 mineral processing centers to focus on value-added products. According to him, the ministry has to take the bull by its horns if the country must reap the harvest of the trillion-dollar industry.
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to how that unfolds.
Okay. Moving on to the Punch very quickly. Election petitions, tribunals decide Tinubu 25 governors' cases this September. Waste managers urge Sanwo-Olu to probe accumulated debts. Marketers get foreign investors backing for 30,000 gas stations. FG plans mining firm pushes gold and 6 minerals. State NLC, TUC order workers to join the nationwide strike. And Forex, domestic operators lament over 40 aircraft grounded abroad. Okay, which story are we doing in Punch?
So NLC had declared a 2-day warning strike. And now we have the state chapters of the labor union expressing that they are ready to also join the industrial strike. So according to this report, we have in Sokoto, Gombe, Kano, all of them saying that, you know, they refer to the federal body, and if the federal body says that they are going to go on strike, then they will go on strike, but they'll wait until they've had their NEC meeting, and then we'll know if they are going on the 2-day working strike as declared by NLC.
Interesting.
So election petitions, everybody's expecting that this month, all the various 28 states, out of the 28 states where governorship elections were held, 25 of them are in court. And obviously the big elephant, which is the presidential elections, also are awaiting judgment, between the verdicts from the tribunal this month. According to the reports, most of the tribunals which were sitting in Lagos, Sokoto, Delta, Kano, and 21 other states, as well as Abuja, had reserved their judgments after the parties concluded their hearings and adopted their written addresses in line with the practice direction for the election petitions. So we are hoping that this month, all the judgments will be finally, we hear the verdicts from the judgments. However, Michael Zekuma, he's one of the lawyers of the other parties, and he's saying that that he expects justice to be done. According to him, I expect the tribunal to shun blaring sirens of power or executive intimidation to do justice. I expect the tribunal to know the Nigerians, the international community, and indeed the whole world are watching. The PDP expressed confidence in the ability of the tribunal to dispense justice appropriately. And everybody's just waiting on this month and hoping that by the end of this month, everybody will know what the verdict is, and then we move on from there. Hopefully, democracy will be retained. Okay? Let's go on a quick break now. When we come back, we continue with our review. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still reviewing Punch. Yes. Amala, go ahead.
Yes, let me take the story about marketers. Still within the way of providing Nigerians with affordable means of transportation, the independent... Excuse me. That was really...
Louder.
As in, the IPMAN has said that they've gotten they're talking with financiers to get how to provide 30,000 gas stations. So they're converting a lot of their current filling stations to be able to dispense gas to people that have already converted their vehicle. They said that this will provide quicker cushion to the cost of transportation than any other means the president is planning or the government is planning to use. They also mentioned that they had already sent a letter to the president. They sent a letter to the Federal Ministry of Finance asking that the CBN provides a 250 billion intervention fund for the natural gas expansion program, which is going to enable IPMAN and all gas stations to be able to convert their filling stations to dispense gas as well. The good news is if they're able to do that, they will be able to cut down transportation. That distance that would have cost you 50 to 70,000 when you use petrol will be costing you about 5,000 to 10,000. This is saving you over 50,000, according to them, if you use the CNG, yes, if you use CNG. And it's also breaking down that they are also talking to private investors, both local and international, to raise the funds that will be necessary to provide 30,000 gas stations converted. The reporter asked them to confirm the detail of how much it's going to cost to convert each one. They said they will not give that information. That's their own business secrets, but that they are working on it. And
Okay.
By doing this, the 11,000 vehicles the government is going to release will have ability to fill their gas anywhere, and even when private citizens convert their cars to being gas-powered, they can get the gas available everywhere as well.
You have a story?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The Association of Waste Managers of Nigeria has lamented the delay in the payment of Visionscape debts to its members. And Visionscape, right? So according to the president of the association, Mr. Olugbenga Ajibola, he said, according to him, the delay in the payment of Visionscape debts to our members that worked with Visionscape Company based on the directives of the then government is worrisome. And he's appealing to the governor through Loma to look into these payments passionately and facilitate the payments. He also said that the government should ensure that their members, that the businesses of their members are protected through enforceable agreements with the governments with appropriate stamp duty and relevant securities. He said this would help to increase members' confidence and also increase the level of investment in the industry. And in response to this, the PS of Environmental Resources, Dr. Mobolaji Gaji, has said that the state government will continue to collaborate with stakeholders to achieve a cleaner and more sustainable environment.
Okay, moving on now to Daily Sun very quickly. Labour in fresh showdown with federal government. Tinubu not illegal president, says NBA. Naira will bounce back against foreign currencies, says Adeboye. He didn't say it like that. UK granted 132,000 visas to Nigerians in first half 2023, says Envoy. Anger, frustration as cooking gas price rises by 9%. And protests as PDP clears Edo local government poll. Invest in Southeast, British High Commissioner tells UK companies. Okay.
Yeah, I took the General Overseer of Redeemed Christian Church of God and Enoch Adeboye's story, where he predicted, according to the Sun, during the Thanksgiving service, that the depreciation of Naira would, that it will become something of the past, that the nation's currency will appreciate, and this time greater than the United States of America's dollars. He said that, although Morayo said that that's not what he said.
I'm waiting for you to finish. I'll tell you what happened.
There was a period, this is what he said, that he made a prediction during the church monthly Thanksgiving service, and he called it uncommon miracles. He said there was a period when Naira competed favorably with the United States dollars. The days when the Naira will be stronger will come back. Those glorious days will return. When that happens, you will know. And so he says that miracles are always unusual. Even sometimes the timing isn't what we expect, but that's what miracles are. So we are happy. I mean, this is good news. Don't spoil it for us.
It wasn't a prophecy. God bless you. He was actually trying to refer to a testimony of the past. Back then, when something happened, and then reference how dollar used to be equal to the Naira. And then he just referenced and just like, don't worry, that time will come back. That's what the man said. And then we framed it in different ways, in different media. It's all over social media. It's heartening.
At first, I was wondering, which Minister of Finance is this? Adeboye? I can't remember.
I was just referencing some testimony many years ago.
Okay.
I mean, but let's move on, please, because let me get very redeemish here. Let's find that story. So let me take the British High Commissioner. So the British High Commission to Nigeria has asked investors from his country to explore investment in the Southeast. This was at the event. There was the event in Enugu actually was a roundtable hosted by Governor Peter Mba. They invited the Deputy High Commissioner in Lagos, Johnny Baxter, who was there. It was an opportunity for high-level discussions on how to advance viable investment, boost trade, and create more economic opportunities in the Southeast and Enugu in particular. He said that he hopes that this meeting they started would increase the relationship between UK and Enugu specifically. According to him, the UK's new developing countries trade scheme harnesses the power of trade to help Nigeria, including Enugu State, achieve its private sector-led economic transformation agenda. So we're hoping indeed that they can invest more and benefit the Nigerian people. Okay.
Yes, still on that same event. Okay. The Daily Sun is also reporting that the United Kingdom issued 132,000 visas to Nigerians in the first half of the year. The British Deputy High Commissioner, Johnny Baxter, confirmed this, and he said that last year, the UK issued 324,000 visas, and that was 10% of the total visas that the UK issued. He also mentioned that Nigerians are the second largest to India when it comes to foreign students in the UK. He also said that the rule which allows students to bring dependents to the UK will be reviewed, because in 2019, there were about 1,500 dependents, but in 2023, the number has increased to 52,000 dependents. He also clarified the need to increase the visa fees. He said there are some people who go to the UK and they are in some circumstances that they need to access some services, and those services cost money. So they usually use the funds from the visa fees to cater to those people.
Although they refund us when we don't get the
access
visa.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. So
That's something.
Yes, I have a
about
story,
it.
actually. The headline said Tinubu is not an illegal president. So apparently, somebody must have mentioned it. The Nigerian Bar Association president visited our president, and he said that the statement was very false, that the fact that the INEC declared him the president, even though there is a tribunal that is contesting his position, does not make him illegal. And that lawyers need to be careful about what they say, because they are very influential, and people in the country expect them to be the one to direct them on what the law actually means. So he said that, and lawyers must be measured in what they are saying, because it's their responsibility. So he said that the president is still the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and he's still the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that until there's anything from the Election Petition Tribunal, the petitioner cannot be called the president, and the president that has been sworn in remains the president. He also he said that it was nothing illegal for him visiting the president, because he went to the presidential villa to present the conference communique. And that was when the media people asked him this question, and he answered that the president is legal, except the tribunal takes him out, and they haven't. And INEC has declared him, he's been sworn in. That's all.
Okay, Vanguard, final paper for this morning. Let's find a story we've not taken. 7.71 billion naira rise in naira value of forex deposits shoots up money supply. Mixed reactions show Kiyamu's suspension of Nigeria air and airport concessions. Renewed Tantita's contract, Otuaru urges Tinubu. Nigerians lack confidence in justice system, says NBA. Subsidy palliatives, Sanwo-Olu flags of food bank program, and AFG to establish solid minerals export corporation, eyes 50% contribution to GDP. Which story?
Yes, I have. Lagos State Governor is saying that yesterday flagged off the distribution of various palliative items for 500,000 vulnerable residents of the state. He also urged private sector to support the government in its efforts to reach a large number of residents. So we know that this palliative is in response to, as we know, rise in the transportation costs and food items. And they said that one of the measures in which this will be formally flagged off is the distribution of food items to vulnerable households through Lagos Food Bank program. So we're hoping that 500,000 vulnerable residents will benefit from this. They're looking at food items, 50 kg rice, 50 kg gari, 100 kg beans, and 10 kg rice, gari, and 5 kg beans. So that's for groups, and then we also have food boxes for individuals. And because of all that's needed in putting this together, the logistics, the packaging, he says this will also impact some MSMEs who will be providing these services.
Very good. That's all we can take on Front Page Review. When we return, look at the hot topic of the day. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. In this segment, we'll be talking about people's views, Nigerian people's views, and the perception on the 100 days of the President Ajibola Tinubu in office. Nigerians have expressed mixed reactions over the performance of the President's administration, while some believe he has done quite well. We will be looking critically at how he has performed in the areas of security, economy, appointments, foreign and internal policies, and proactiveness or his responsiveness, reacting to public outcries and all. So later on the show, we'll be bringing in an APC National Secretary, Senator Ajibola Basiru, will join us later to share his views. But first and more importantly, we'd like to hear from Nigerians. What are your own thoughts? The president has spent 100 days in office. What are your thoughts on what he's done so far? What are your own views? It's important we hear the views of Nigerians on what this administration has done so far. So you can call us on the numbers on your screen, 081 076 41679, 090 241 63440. You can also tweet to us at TVC Connect. Please hashtag your VTVC so we can read the tweet. There's so many levels and so many areas to talk about, but I know you had said recently...
Let me start by saying that 100 days, this concept of the first 100 days, it is no way to indicate how well or how poorly a government has been working. 100 days is barely 3 months. That cannot be a basis for judging an administration. But it would give us an inkling to where the government is leaning, and if they are keeping to their words as promised in their manifestos pre-election, especially when we're judging a new administration. If it is someone coming back, we can just ignore it. But this is 100 days is not a basis for judgment. However, one of the big deals the president had said, and all the candidates said, was that they were going to be no subsidy. There was going to be deregulation of the petroleum sector. However, the approach in the manifesto and what the reality brought to us was very different. The manifesto promised a gradual removal of subsidy that would be phased out in a way that would not hurt the people. What we saw in the first 100 days was immediate removal, which turned many Nigerians into paupers, many Nigerians into losing their jobs, many Nigerians into poor people immediately because they couldn't afford basic livelihood. So that would be an obvious, you promised this, you gave us this. You promised us that the refineries were going to be working, you phase out the removal of subsidy, but we didn't get that reaction. I'll just leave it at that because that's what affected most Nigerians so far. The number one thing that has affected us in this administration has been the removal of subsidy. Everybody's bearing the brunt and we're feeling the impact.
Right. I don't think 100 days is meant to say that you have already done well or you've done poorly. But I think it's just to show you the direction in which a government is going. And I think with this particular government, more than the previous governments, for me personally, I can say that I can see where the direction is. One of the positives that I've seen is that this administration seems to be quite a responsive one. I mean, there are a few cases of protests, concerning appointments, as we remember the NDDC appointments. And in a matter of few days, you get a response. You get response that shows that they have listened to people. So it looks like their ears are on the ground. They seem to be quite close to the people. And we see that happening. In the appointments too, the ministerial appointments, some people were taking off just the last moment, and it was based on public outcry and conversations. The second thing, which will be a negative for this government, and I think from the very first time that the president had said it at his swearing in, when he said subsidy will be removed, he got a lot of criticism because they felt that the way he did it wasn't the right way, and so we saw the backlash or the negative impact on the economy and on people. And I think that the government is learning that sometimes we have good intentions, sometimes we have a great policy, but there also has to be a way that first you announce that policy, and also that there has to be a plan put in place to cushion the effect of the policy. So we find that this government is, on the one hand, trying to push what we have all agreed is right, but there is a huge negative economic impact. Now we're talking about palliatives, how to make sure that Nigerians are able to cover for cost of transportation. Some people even need to get food all across, the country. So those are the two things I think. The government, positive, it seems quite responsive. Negative is that going forward with any other policy, there has to be a plan before it is set off.
What are your thoughts, general thoughts on the first 100 days?
Well, it's pretty obvious that Nigerians are going through a lot. They've been through a lot in the last 3 months, but it's also important to note that the shege that we are going through now did not start today. The difference is that the issues that we had before, the sufferings that we had before, was as a result of a lack of vision to improve the economy, while this one is as a result of an intentional move to cushion the effects of radical policies that have been made to reduce poverty and also improve the economy. I would want to, in my own opinion, I think that this government, the body language of this government seems like they know what they are doing. And I'm going to cite the fuel subsidy removal as an example. A lot of people might argue that it should have been done better, it should have been gradual, but I believe the radical approach was the best. Because if the president had set up a committee to look into this, 1 year down the line, we'll still be speaking big grammar, and then they won't have done anything. And there's a quote that says that if you want to make any bold decision, it's better you do it scared. Do it, just go into it, and then when you are inside of it, you'll figure out how it's going to pan out. And that's exactly what we are saying with the palliatives and all the things that have been rolled out now. So it's a great move. It was radical. We are feeling the brunt, but I believe that it will get better in the long run.
All right, so going by the article by Mr. Shubwale from Vanguard, I think he read an article there, which is pretty interesting. He had a perspective that the president has never worked in top-level federal government. So according to Mr. Shubwale, he's new. He knew next to nothing about government at that level. So according to him, he doesn't know how complex systems work. And furthermore, Buhari had kept him totally uninformed about what they were doing in the last administration. He arrived on the job absolutely ignorant of what he would inherit. And we've seen that in the sense that many government, once they enter government, they realize, oh my goodness, I didn't understand the capacity of what I was about to do. We think you know, but until you get in. But do you think he was prepared, or he's prepared for what is happening? Because it seems that he's almost learning, and he takes an inch, then he realizes, and he takes a step back. He does something that he thinks is right, he takes a step back. Do you think he was really prepared for this job?
I don't think he can be prepared for the problem in Nigeria. No, if we are being realistic, the kind of problem Nigeria is facing is so complex and multifaceted that no one person could actually be prepared and come in and be dropping it like, it's not a messiah. So the response of the president personally, in that he is responsive, in that he's taking responsibility, is good for me. In that when there is a problem, there is a reaction to cover up that problem. That for me is okay. However, we all expected a whole lot because he made a lot of promises. So there was an expectation that he had a stronger level of knowledge of how bad things were. And then he made a statement right from the beginning of the administration. He said that they should not pity him. He asked for this job. He knows it's going to be a complex job. He knows that he will make enemies. He knows he will not please Nigerians. He knows that it will get harder before it gets better, obviously. But he said we should not pity him. He's ready for the job. So I believe he's ready. He knows it will not be easy, and he's willing to take feedback. We will just, as Nigerians, do our own path, which is to consistently give him the feedback in a constructive way. Like the way NDDC's scenario plays out, that this is what you've done. We don't want it. This is how we want you to do it according to the law. And he responded. So if Nigerians all come together, understanding that we're working as one to make our country better, and we give feedback consistently like that, we expect that based on what he has done in the past 100 days, we hope he consistently does that and he addresses himself too.
This call from Mr. Francis. Thanks for calling. You're live. Oh, I'm so sorry. There's a part of... Okay, go ahead.
Yes, you were saying if he was ready, and I tried to, first of all, you know, sometimes we need to, instead of looking at him in isolation, let's look at him in comparison to maybe 2 or 3 administrations before him. And in that regard, he feels to me to be the most prepared of the lot. I mean, the last administration, the very first few 6 months, we remember, it just seemed like things were going helter-skelter. There was lots of silence, you know, and there were lots of mistakes that were allowed to just perpetuate out until it was too much and then almost too late before reversals were made. So for me, this administration seems the most prepared of, you know, the previous ones, the ones that have become an adult to understand. The other ones, if you are looking at military governments, remember those ones did not care about our feelings, they just came in and they declared whatever it is that they wanted to declare, and we had to fall in line whether we liked it or not. So, and I like, as you said, you know, and I'll go back to the fact that he's responsive, because you find yourself in a new place, really you cannot know everything, but if you're also humble enough and you're also responsible enough to understand, to listen to what the people are asking. And it's not just to, you know, be like a yes person and just quickly do what people are saying, but then you weigh it vis-a-vis your own experience, the people that you have put around you to help you work in your cabinet, and then you make better informed decisions. Then you are prepared. So I'm more confident so far of what I've seen in 100 days.
Let me come to you, Damola, your thoughts, because there's a part of this manifesto that says, I'm reading from the article also, says, we shall phase out fuel subsidy, yet maintain the underlying social contract between government and the people. Now, one was done, the other wasn't considered properly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's in your manifesto that you remove it, but you never go away from that social contract of ensuring that there are jobs, ensuring that there is economic stability, you know. So, is it that there was hastiness in some of these things to do, or how do you think they could do better in the policy? The policy is good, but were they too fast or not considering the social contract that they promised us? What do you think?
Well, I think that it's just like when you're in the university. Theory is always different from reality. So when you want to take over a government, it's common for politicians to promise you heaven and earth. But have they removed the fuel subsidy? Yes, they have. So I think we should look at the brighter side. It has happened, and we should look at the efforts the government, the intentional efforts the government is taking to cushion these efforts. Because if you look at when the fuel subsidy was removed, it led to a 20% growth in the capital market, which is the best performance in 15 years. So there are other positives to the fuel subsidy removal that we should look at.
Okay. Let me take this call on Malay. Thanks for calling on Malay.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. You're live.
Yeah, this is Morayo calling from Abuja.
Yes.
I'm a first-time caller.
Welcome to the show.
All right. Actually, I just wanted to contribute to our perspective about the 100 days in office of Mr. President. I would be here to say that he actually started on a good note, but it's been seen now that he's not prepared at all. In the sense that the removal of subsidy is something that we have been looking forward to from a prepared mind. But 3 months after, we have not seen a good method of cushioning the effect on the people. Now, the palliative that we promised Nigerians through the state governors, we all know how it has always been. Whatever goes to the state, to the grassroots, only hijacked by state government, and it doesn't get to the people at all. Now, giving 5 billion naira to state governors is dashing capital to the personal account of the state governors. As so many states, even my state, Kogi State, right now, have not changed the effect of whatever palliatives that have come from the federal government. I will not see, even till November, when the election will be coming, they might use that money for election.
I thought it has been reviewed. The 5 billion naira to the governors. I thought it has been reviewed. Maybe I'll cross-check that.
It was saying that the governors, that it doesn't feel like the president was prepared because the subsidy was taken out, and then we're now trying to quickly provide palliatives and all of that stuff.
Let me go on a break. When we come back, we'll confirm, because I read somewhere that has been reviewed. But let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll get the right information. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. To add to join this conversation right now is the APC National Secretary, Senator Ajibola Basiru. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, madam.
Good to have you on the show. So we're discussing before you came on the president's 100 days in office. Many have described it that it seemed he was somewhat ill-prepared for this job because of the great policies he did, but the fact that they didn't consider the effects of some of these policies on the Nigerian people. Some have also said that they are happy about his responsiveness, the fact that when there was a outcry on some issue, he seemed to respond. What are your own general view on the president's 100 days in office across board?
Yes, I think the first starting point, I thank you for bringing out this conversation. And of course, in a democratic setting, there are always a heterogeneity of ideas. So we don't expect everybody to agree with our leader, the president, and our party policies. But the first starting point is to say, using the word of Amica Cabra, tell no lies, claim no, easy victory, and don't mask any challenges, any failure, from the masses, because the masses are concerned about their well-being. They are not really concerned about the ideas, in your brain. So to start with, we must be very honest that the presidency of Ajibola Tinubu is a reformist administration. And like all reformist administration, the starting point is always, very difficult. So we acknowledge as a party that the necessary changes in the architecture of our polity, in the architecture of our economy, and the structure of our government necessarily is affecting, quite the mass of our people. We must be honest about that. But all is for the betterment of our people in the long run, and I will make that clear, in this, conversation. First and foremost, the fuel subsidy as a multidimensional problem that it has created, for the Nigerian society. First is the fact that it has become a drain on the little resources that the country has in being able to galvanize development and expand economic opportunities. Secondly, it also has adverse effects on our security. You discover that some of the Boko Haram insurgents, particularly in the northeast, rely on the arbitrage of the price of petrol within the West African sub-region and Nigeria as a veritable source of funding for their operation. The third aspect is also that the fuel subsidy regime has become intractable cesspool of corruption to the benefit of tiny elite cabal in Nigeria. And just as been promised by all leading presidential candidates in Nigeria in 2018, that the fuel subsidy has to be gone. So what President Bola Tinubu has done is in line with resetting that reality. I was in the 9th Senate. You will discover that we spend close to between 5 and 8 trillion naira every year in addressing the question of fuel subsidy, just assuming that that amount of money is made available for a productive activity, for infrastructure development. The net effect in advancing the economic and welfare of the people would then be felt. I read a report yesterday or day before yesterday that the World Bank itself has acknowledged that Nigeria will be able to save close to 3.9 trillion naira this year from the decision to take away fuel subsidy. But then, yes, we have made some savings in the past 2 or 3 months of the administration. But that savings for now cannot even be put holistically into the economy so that we don't have a situation of hyper gallop inflation. So what the president and his team has done is to have an understanding with the governors that this would be put into infrastructure support. And of course, you know that when infrastructure development is given priority, it will, in the overall interest of the country, galvanize our economy. The second aspect of the decision policy in terms of monetary policy of administration is to float the naira. You will discover that the idea of subsidizing the naira, if I may use that word, or supporting the naira, has created disincentive to investment in the Nigerian economy, both direct investment and portfolio investment, because investors will not know whether they will be able to repatriate their capital and profit, and at what rate they will be able to do so. All yes, right. That I must acknowledge has caused some inconveniences some difficulties, but in the overall interest of the country, when this policy begin, to germinate, you will be able to see the overall benefits, for the betterment of the welfare of our people. So
let me get a few more questions for you.
People. So we want them to understand that the President Tinubu is the least person that want to inflict unnecessary hardship on anybody. Not talk of his own, compatriots and citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Right. Okay. Go ahead, Sokwe.
Okay. So, we've heard you. Many Nigerians will be saying something contrary, especially because Nigeria hasn't been able to increase its income. We have a problem in terms of our earning. Revenue still comes largely from crude oil. Our crude oil production is still far below capacity and is still dropping. And yet, when our president wanted to nominate ministers, he chose to nominate the largest cabinet that we've seen, 48 ministers, featuring a lot of politicians. How would you be able to defend this as an achievement in the 100 days of this administration?
My sister, I've not put a proposition forward that appointment of ministers is an achievement of administration. So calling me to defend, that would be to set a question, a marking scheme that I've not set for myself. Nonetheless, I must address the issue of the 48 ministers. You know, and all of us know that by the constitution of Nigeria, there must be a minimum of 36 or 37 ministers. And because by constitutional provision, every state must have minister. And in a novel response to the yearning of the people of the Federal Capital Territory, the current president has decided to nominate somebody from the FCT. And yes, 48 ministers were nominated, 45 so far have been cleared. So it's not the case that we have 48 ministers. Then secondly, too, being somebody who has been in government, I've been in government at the state level as a 2-term commissioner. I've also been a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, participating in the appropriation process. I want Nigeria to realize that the cost of governance in Nigeria is not really at the doorstep of political appointee. It is actually more of a function of the large size of our government bureaucracy, which is occasioned by the need for the Nigerian society to address to the welfare needs of creating employment, even though that may not be operative in terms of profit and loss principle. Government is a social engineering institution. It cannot operate on the basis of profit and loss and the kind of efficiency that our private sector will bring into it. Otherwise, there will be serious dysfunction. What am I saying? The bulk of the expenditure of government goes to the payment of the salaries of the public servant and are starting to be collected with any statistics to the contrary. And of course, the overhead of government. In the present current budget, what you have in the budget of Nigeria for the purpose of running the government, if you take away what political appointee 48 or even 100 ministers will take, is actually rather negligible compared to the huge amount of money that goes to servicing government bureaucracy. That must be said. Then secondly, too, what Mr. President had done by the ministers that he has put in place is to ensure that there should be a basis for key performance index and assessment of the function of the ministers. And you also look at the critical sector, where even there have been more than one ministers, there are critical sectors that Nigerians over the years have been yearning for more investment, for more attention. For instance, the health sector, you have the overall coordinating ministers and you have 2 ministers of state in that sector. One cannot say, you cannot, by Constitution of Nigeria, Section 14, security and welfare of the people is the paramount purpose of government. And when you cannot decountenance at the role of health for the purpose of addressing issue of welfare, then the oil sector is
let me pause you for a second, sir.
When I come back, that's also an area where you have 2 ministers of state, one in charge of the gas sector, which is where the future is actually going now. Then one being saddled responsibility to be able to focus in the area of the oil that we already have some measure of certainty. So when you look at the ministers, you look at it in view of what assignment the president is giving them, and in view of what will be the overall effect that they will be able to bring in terms of overall economic development and prosperity for our people,
All right.
rather than looking at it from a negative
Right.
perspective.
All right, let me go on a quick break. When we come back, we continue this interview. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We still have our guest, Senator Ajibola Basiru, with us. Damola, you had a guest. You had a question. Go ahead, please.
Yes. So the president appointed ministers from the 36 states and also from geopolitical zones. So let me just get, so the Northwest and the Southwest got 3 each. North Central, Northeast, and South-South got 2 each, but none from the Southeast. So what's your reaction to speculations that the Southeast was intentionally sidelined because the president did not get votes from that region?
I think anybody that is saying that is just, trying to say what is not empirical. One, the question of ministerial appointment is not just about the size. It's also about, the kind of responsibility that the president has given to ministers from across the country, which as far as I'm concerned, is not lopsided in favor of either the Southwest or the Northwest. Let us go to the Southeast and to put lie to the fallacy that the president is sidelining the Southeast of the country. One of the most important ministry in any government, the Ministry of Works, and that is given to Senator David. And of course, trade and investment. Nobody can countenance the importance of trade and investment in any administration and in any economic development, and that has also been given to my sister Doris from Imo State. So when you look at the caliber of ministers that have been put from the Southeast, and also the kind of responsibility, very humongous and very impactful, that have been given to them, you will know that Mr. President is not somebody that is have a little by in that regard. In any event, the policy of our party is to consciously engage our colleagues from the Southeast and bring the Southeast into the mainstream of our progressive political party. And immediately after the election, we have set the work at that, and I can confidently tell you some of the fact that most of the big politicians in the Southeast are now in the fold of the APC or already on the way to be in the fold of APC. So we're going to see a more integrated Southeast in terms of national mainstream politics, and the president and our party, we are consciously engaging the Southeast in a way that we'll be able to have a more robust engagement with our colleagues and our brothers from the Southeast.
Right.
So there's no such intention, and of course there are evidence to the contrary of that intention that some possibly mischief maker may want to make. Mr. President and our party, we place a lot of premium on the contribution, the sagacity, and the subscription of our brothers from the Southeast of the country.
All right.
The chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, who is a very important person in our party, is the governor of Imo State, Senator Oposodima.
Okay, so the question is actually about the 12 geopolitical, the appointment from the 12, the extra 12, what's it called, appointments from the geopolitical zones. They did not get any extra appointment at all, and that has led to a lot of speculations. That's what I want you to clarify.
But I've told you that the speculation is baseless, and who says if we now are in yearning to that speculation, which I call that speculation, and Mr. President decide to appoint additional minister from the Southeast, I hope pundit will also not say that we are also increasing the cost of governance. But I also know that beyond even the ministerial appointment, some key appointments in the government of Ajibola Tinubu have been even balanced across all the political zones. That's what I can say in that regard.
I also have, we've talked about his achievement, but there's still some things that make it where Nigerians are saying he wasn't prepared. and it's really about the policies that you have mentioned as achievements. So let's just say the removal of subsidy is an achievement, but we see how, it has reflected, socially and humanly. And then we'll talk about floating of the currency. And most importantly, we're talking about the petrol markets between NNPCL and the independent marketers. They're saying that even though the market has been deregulated, they have had to leave the importation to NNPC because they cannot access Forex, and they're not getting the petroleum products even from NNPC. So the lack of readiness, the question would be, did he think it through? Didn't he know that there would be such impact on the economy? And if he had thought it through, maybe he would have better planned these policies.
I think if anybody lay blame of unpreparedness of Ajibola Tinubu, that person certainly does not know Ajibola Tinubu. Ajibola is really prepared. In fact, at the risk of sounding immodest, is about the most prepared Nigerian to occupy the Nigerian office. Any major policy changes would definitely have, the kind of effect that we're having now. You cannot, talk of being able to know the ramification and be able to tackle ramifications of the removal of first subsidy and the floating of Naira and some other, reformist, program of Ajibola Tinubu and say that you can fix it. Everywhere that has been development, it has always come, with, challenges and at times, hardship. But at the end of the day, it's about putting eye on the goal. What do we want to achieve in the next 1 year for our economy? What do we want to achieve in the next 2 years? The administration is not a 100-day administration. It's an administration of 4 years, and within the scope of that 4 year, you're able to make an assessment. Maybe in retrospect, after 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, what has been, the overall effect of this? So you cannot, pigeonhole, assessment of readiness or preparedness within the scope of 100 years. Beyond even the issue of, fuel subsidy and floating of the Naira, you should also know that one of the immediate tasks that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did was to set up a professional, think tank on addressing the issue of revenue, so that we can have a diversified revenue and having more revenue from taxation. And that committee has been given a mandate to begin to implement whatever they have been able to come up, rather than wait for when they come up with the holistic recommendation in that regard. And you see last week, they presented a plenary report and plenary report of action to Vice President in his office, and it's widely publicized. Aside this, the president has also been able to put in place ways by which you'll be able to have a cooperative model of federalism, whereby irrespective of your political affiliation as a governor, you'll be able to participate actively in infrastructure development. Infrastructure cannot just drop on us on a single day. It requires meticulous planning and robust engagement with the active people in the sector. You can see the Minister of Works has already touched almost about 6 or 7 states within the period that he has been sworn in, try to have on-the-spot assessment of the state of infrastructure we have in the country. And I will tell you, if we're able to fix infrastructure, and I'm very confident I should be able to do that, fix power, and then be able to remove the imbalances and the structural dysfunctionality in our economy, all of us will be able to say that notwithstanding the present challenge, and I started this conversation by saying we understand that Nigerians are facing very serious economic challenges now. We are not closing our eyes to it, and will not lie about it, but we want to plead with them to see reason on the need for us to make the sacrifice for today for a better tomorrow, not only for ourselves, but the unborn generation of Nigerians. Let
me ask your thoughts about the president's relationship with the governors, because many of us have realized in the past few years that there can be real development if the governors and even the state governors and the local government are all in sync. Even recently, when the president tried to distribute 5 billion naira across the states, many Nigerians resisted it, saying that I don't give my governor 5 billion naira because I don't know how this is going to get to us. People are worried that the governors might not have aligned completely with the plans of the president. What in this first 100 days, how would you assess the relationship within the federal government, the state government, and possibly the local government so far in really bringing development to their people?
I would say that one of the challenges that we have in Nigeria today is actually the depth of local government administration. I could recollect growing up in the city of Osogbo, the local government administration may perform so many roles in terms of so many developmental activities, in terms of construction of markets, grading of roads, provision of amenities, and of course, diverse engagement in the economic activity. But it appears that our local government administration have been atrophied by the state government. So I know that one of the things going forward that the National Assembly and Mr. President will need to look into is to how to ensure we have viable local government administration that will be able to address issue of local security, local development, and of course empowerment, particularly the women and the vulnerable in the society. As to entrusting the governors with the work of palliative, we must realize the fact that we are not a unitary state. Notwithstanding this skepticism that some people may have about some governors, the president will want to have a cooperative model of federalism, whereby confidence will be built between the federal government and the state government. You also know that Mr. President, as a governor, also bore the brunt of an authoritarian and dictatorial federal government of President Olusegun Obasanjo, and he will not want to be to toe that particular part. And of course, those who have elected to have federalism put in place in Nigeria, of course, recognize the heterogeneity of our culture, the diversity of our people, and it is the context of that that will be able to realize overall development of our people. There are a lot of responsibility on the part of the state government. In fact, the bulk of what is required to make life easy for Nigerian people is on the doorstep of our governor. What do I mean? Education, health facilities, environmental sanitation, development of intrastate commerce. They are all within the confines of our state government. So we want to call on our state government to be alive and support the administration to ensure that we have a qualitative development in the life of our people.
All right.
So the Minister of Finance has given an 8-point agenda to boost the economy, and that includes poverty eradication. Considering the 89 million people currently living below the poverty line, how realistic is this plan to eradicate poverty in 3 years?
I think there's a difference between aspirational agenda and the achievement of that agenda. With respect to the Honorable Minister for Finance, I think the question of eradication of poverty is an aspirational agenda. Of course, it has not put a timeline to achieving that. So it's not as if he's saying I'm going to eradicate poverty among the 89 million Nigeria within a particular period. But to the extent that it's aspirational, for us to be taken serious by the Nigerian people, we must begin to put in place practical programs and activities seeking to demonstrate our readiness to eradicate poverty. And what do I mean by this? One, we need to go back to technical and vocational training for our people. We need to strengthen the informal sector of our economy. We need to broaden access to credit among small traders and particularly women in our society. We need to strengthen our microcredit agency so that then we also need to look at the regulatory requirement for doing businesses at local places. A situation whereby somebody wants to do soap making in Osogbo and will have to get to Abuja and spend millions of naira to get regulatory approval is disincentive to small-scale enterprises and business. So I would want to urge the Honorable Minister for Finance in trying to realize the aspiration of reduction of poverty, to look into this, to look into erecting building blocks that will assist the vulnerable in society to be able to climb the ladder of economic prosperity.
Right.
Okay, sir. I want to take you to the manifesto. The campaign was made with a manifesto, a promise of what Nigerians should expect from this administration.
Renewed hope.
Yes, renewed hope. And then there was a detailed breakdown of how the renewed hope will take shape. Should Nigerians still expect that renewed hope document as a basis to hold this administration accountable over the next 3+ years? Or should we, what should be our basis for holding the president accountable for delivering the renewed hope agenda to Nigerians?
Of course, the only empirical basis for assessment of the work of the presidency of Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the renewed hope agenda. So we are committed to actualizing the renewed hope agenda. And if I may use the word, that is the Bible of the administration. And you will see, notwithstanding the present challenges that we are facing, in fact, those challenges are necessitated by the fact that if we don't go through those challenges now, we will not be able to achieve, the new hope, agenda. You could see just a few days ago, Mr. President signing off on, giving out, 5 million or so, about 5 or 50 million, glasses to, vulnerable, Nigerians, to assist, with, their health in terms of their sight. So part of what is being done is that if you want to actualize any agenda, you need resources to be able to do so. What the presidency is doing now is to ensure that we block the negatives in the economy, remove dysfunctionality in our economy, expand and diversify the revenue base so that there will be resources to actualize the renewed hope agenda. If you want a modern, responsive, functional health system, you need resources to be able to do so. If you want functional education that is responsive to the yearnings of the aspiration of the teeming Nigerian youth, you need resources to be able to do so. And these resources, I will respect, they don't come from heaven. They're already here. When we go to use instrumentality of the law, policies and implementation to ensure that we harness the resources and then being able to galvanize development, which will catalyze in prosperity for our people in the long run.
All right.
But we already have a few deviations from the manifestos.
Okay.
That was why I wanted to
All right,
Yeah.
well, go ahead.
Okay, so we cannot live without talking about security. I would not be unfair to say that I was expecting a huge change, in 100 days, but I would like to know what the direction is, because to me personally, it's not yet so clear, because we're constantly reporting attacks in Plateau State, Kaduna State, far up north. So I would like to know what the plan is, going forward.
Yeah, I think, yes, the issue of security, and I also appreciate you for saying that you cannot, use 100 days to assess what is being done in terms of security. But you know that one of the first set of decisions taken by Mr. President, bold one, is to, change, the leadership of the Nigerian security, forces, and ensuring that we bring, younger, agile people. I was very happy seeing the Chief of Army Staff, going, to the theater of war to also, ginger and motivate, the forces, and he made certain profound promises, which I believe the Nigerian government will do. One, to ensure that we have a better equipment for the Nigerian security forces, and of course, tackle the social aspect of their life. You cannot get the best motivation from soldiers, from security operatives, when their children and their wives are not, are getting the best in terms of education, in terms of health, and in terms of accommodation. Then secondly, too, the Minister for Police Affairs has also highlighted the need to have special forces to be able to address, the problem of insecurity, particularly specialized, security, problem. But beyond that, and I believe, going forward, our government will have to expand the capacity in terms of personnel and in terms of equipment of the Nigerian police. The Nigerian police, as it is today, is understaffed. We have less than 300 personnel to service about 180 or 200 million Nigerians. They also need more presence in terms of certain community, certain large expanse of Nigerian territories that are still not covered by any form of security arrangement. And of course, as we'll improve the security architecture, we also need to improve, the life of those, that act in this, theater, to ensure that they have necessary commitment to put in their best to be able to secure us. And I believe that issue of technology will also have to be looked into, and ensuring that we have a data-driven and technological, enhanced security, system in the country.
All right, we'll look forward to the next 100 days, but I'm happy that you want to give some kind of insight on the first 100 days of our president. Thank you so much. We'll be speaking with the APC National Secretary, Senator Ajibola Basiru, on this matter. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Yeah. Thank you very much.
We're going to go on a quick break. When we come back, move on to the next segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. So, military coups have been a regular occurrence in some parts of Africa in the decades after independence. Now, after a period of relative democratic stability, there are indications they are on the rise again. Joining us on the show is Executive Director, Lead Network Africa, Chukwuma Ephraim Okenwa. He'll be speaking on why has there been so many coups in Africa lately, and the implications, if not properly checked. You can join the conversation on the number on your screen, 081-076-41679, 090-241-16340. You can also tweet to us at TVC Connect. Please hashtag YourViewTVC so we can read your tweets. All right. Welcome to the show, sir. Are you there?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Good to have you on with us today. So, of course, just like many Nigerians, we've been quite concerned and worried about the coups we've experienced in the last couple of years within Africa. And many Nigerians are hoping that it wouldn't be something that would continue. What are your own initial thoughts on why coups has been so prevalent recently, in recent times?
Well, I want to start by saying that it do not come as a surprise to the intelligentsia community in terms of academics and some analytics that are available, such as the Fragility Index, which assesses how stable nations are, depending on the economic and political dynamics. When you talk about the economic dynamics, you're looking at how stable are people economically, what's the rate of unemployment, what's the role that poverty is playing, are there dissatisfaction with the political leadership, and the style with which citizens are carried along. But then another indices to look at would be the fact that experiential and history, of course, shows that nations with previous histories of coup are more likely to experience coup than others that have not. We know that, of course, from the 1950s up to date, we've had over 200 coups in Africa. But then not our African country has experienced coup. We know some have experienced up to 10, like Ghana, Nigeria 8, and of course Sudan is known to be the highest. But largely West Africa has become the epicenter of coups in Africa. So where you now talk about the political dissatisfaction, like sometimes it could be, where you see like some administration trying to like perpetuate themselves as live presidents, either by changing the constitution or by forcing themselves like through an election, an electoral process that is often flawed to continue, in an unpopular manner. And these are some of the things that could stir up like that, the angers. And the very recent ones happening in West Africa, it's also interesting to note, are largely Francophone countries. There is that dissatisfaction with the unholy alliance, the France-Afrique, that France has over Africa. And when you look at it, what is really very painful, because it's been said, and it's been believed over the time, that the best, the worst democracy is better than the best military rule. But then we don't see that being true on the streets of Africa when some of this happen. Something ordinarily that should be making citizens to weep. Why should there be military incursion? disrupting democratic rule. Rather, we see that greeted with happiness, people kissing the military junta, and it really calls for a core concern to reassess how stable democracy is in Africa.
Yeah, okay.
So talking about that celebration, my question is, shouldn't we let people have what they want? Because when the military took over in Niger and Gabon, we saw jubilations on the streets, in the stadiums, and just like you said, it should have been something for a great concern. But then people are happy, so shouldn't we let them have what they want?
Well, the truth of the matter is that, like we've known, whether you're talking about military rule and civilian rule, historically, what it's always been and how leadership is designed to work is that the military is meant to protect the integrity, the territorial integrity of every state, guard the citizens, and ensure that things are done well. Over the years, like when you judge from history, any place where you have like military rule, there's often like that high-handedness before like oppression and all the rest of it, and the people begin to wish there should be like a return. We know that the very first time where we have like military leaders conquering for their nation, in the case of George Washington, when he came back and after like about a rule in America, he handed over to the civilian government. And since America is known as the father of democracy, and some of these nations, has queued in and said, well, we want democracy. I am wondering if like a military head of state is not doing well, whether the will still be on the people to actually re-elect another leader if they are dissatisfied. So I think that the dicey thing about that is that it doesn't really give the power to the people, but of course to those few military people that we now install people that perhaps may even perpetuate themselves more. So in the course of trying to fill a hole, you can dig you can dig a gully.
Countries in Africa with presidents that have been there for many years, 50-something years, 20-something years. It makes no sense. The injustice is just too great. And sometimes when you hear about these coups, you think maybe it's justified. Because how do you say you're a democratically elected leader and you're in there, when you leave, your son continues, your grandson continues, and that is truly the story of Africa.
Pardon?
Okay.
You didn't hear her at all?
Okay, so I was saying that in Africa, we have many countries that, even though they say they're democratically, or it's a democracy, but we've had them for many years. We have Cameroon, for instance. We have, like in Gabon, we had the father give to the son. Now we're talking about grandson. This is the story of Africa. And then sometimes you feel that these coups are justified because how can you say you're a democracy and yet you have been in power for decades?
Well, in all honesty, I think there is really no coup that is justifiable because it's just like trying to, it's said that two wrongs cannot make a right. Regrettably, it's actually like regional bodies and of course the AU that should be able to like play like critical roles in helping like through diplomacy to address like some of those genuine concerns, such as when you have individuals, engaging in civilian coup against their nation, where someone wants to change the constitution just for selfish reasons, where like a leader is so corrupt and not building that necessary trust. So what we actually expect from Africa Union would have been when some of those reports, like we see, it's been like a culture in Africa where we have to like wait for the bad thing to happen first before we can take it serious. We know about the time, just like when you have like warnings about flood, nations refuse to do things about it. And it will really interest you to know that when you go to like this fragility index report, you see that some of these nations that are currently experiencing this has been fingered because there is that great dissatisfaction. So what I think would have been like the part of the AU and ECOWAS living up to their responsibilities to ensure that, the civilian leaders that are elected, they actually, live up to the creed, the true reason why they were actually elected. And with that, we can see less of, that desire or even the justification, because even over time now, if like now, the military, one fingers them to, oh, these guys are actually doing this because they want to be in power. They want to enjoy like the perks of power. It becomes a little bit confusing because things they actually cite as instances, such as mismanagement of the economy, bad leadership, flawed election, external interferences, and even when some leaders are being alleged that they are backed up by France, right? They are supported by France. You can literally see like external interference in domestic affairs. This now makes people to begin to build more confidence on the military. But then, of course, democracies are not designed to work that way.
Okay, so obviously the wind of coup seemed to have followed the economic challenge of 2020 because it became sort of worse. We total about 8 coups right now. Two countries have had 2 coups. Like they used coup to remove one person, they put another person, another coup to remove the person they put there. And some people are accusing the AU of being hypocritical about speaking against coup when they didn't speak against, like Mariam said, the institutional injustice of perpetuated democracy, but was not intrinsic, like following the rules of democracy. And there is a fear now that more countries will follow that line of going into coups. So, based on, you said it wasn't a shock to those of you that have studied it. What are the countries that you feel might be falling in this line? And how can the incessant coup be prevented? Now, many Nigerians don't even understand why there is coup because they feel like they don't understand how it affects us, but it really does. Maybe the first question will be for you to answer how it affects us when there is coup in countries around us, the impact on our economy, and how to prevent the future coups that you're already seeing might happen within Africa. Thank you.
Yeah, first and foremost, there's what we call the contagion effect. One thing about coups is that it is contagious because it has a way of like building morale across other countries' military. Because what is just like sometimes when I look on Twitter and I see some Nigerians saying, Nigerian military, what are you waiting for? Even telling the military of their nation, or even now pointing other nation that is the next. Some Nigerians actually has prepared a calendar of expected coups, right? But of course, like these are like based on, like in Cameroon, who had a leader for over 4 decades that have refused to like leave. These are like some of the indices, like when you do like fragility studies. Benin Republic is also like one nation that most likely, may also like toe the same path based on like those projections. But of course, when you have like your neighbors, like we know that in the case of like Niger, that is bordered by up to like 7 states of the nation, when you have coups in those nations, and you know that over the time, there have been that interaction between their military and Nigeria's military. So you also begin to talk about like some unholy alliances that may also like boost, the morale of like those nations that are surrounding them. And at that particular point, the nations that are their neighbors become like very more careful because if you don't like look at the case of, so you have Mali, you have Burkina Faso, and then you now have a country that is like in between, just falling also like recently, like Gabon. So all those contagion effects starts with like nations that are bordered with those nations that can likely take those decisions and they find out that when they come together, it becomes like a stronger team and it has like impact. Because of course, like for instance, we know when Niger came up and said they were declared no-flight zone. So for some of those European flights that will be affected, you know what that reasonably means is that instead of flying over Niger, you have to like divert. And of course, that could increase like fare prices on airfares, significantly. And also other things of like cost of doing business. Instead of cooperating with your neighbors that are in the same economic community of West Africa, you now have to find like alternative. And it has like a lot like in the case of Nigeria also that sells electricity to Niger, it also like impacts our economy in that regard.
All right, you see, my concern, there are different worries concerning this issue of coup, because some argue that coups might be necessary for a transition into what Africans actually, what they're experiencing and what they might need. In Nigeria, for example, we understand very much how the military, for someone like me, for example, I remember when Ken Saro-Wiwa was killed. This is under the military. Remember how Delegiwa was killed under the military. Remember how freedom of speech was inhibited. We remember how they always come with their decrees. All this one, constitutional rule of law. They don't believe in rule of... Femi Falana will tell you easily how many times he was arrested during the military because they don't believe in rule of law. So we know military coup can never be the way to go. However, some have argued that if you have a military coup, it might serve a good transition into sustainable democracy in African countries. Do you see that? Do you think that it might be required, it might be needed at this season, especially for countries that haven't been consistently adhering to their constitution? You know, some countries allow 2 terms of 5 years or 2 terms of 7 years, and presidents have been there for years, 20 years, 20-some years. So for these kind of countries, do you think it is necessary for them, for that transition to democratic government?
Well, if we look at the historical perspective, the question we will ask is, and like about Einstein defines insanity, you keep on doing the same thing and expecting different results. I mean, some of these nations have witnessed coup 10 times, 8 times, 16 times, like in the case of Sudan, and it has not in any way brought the country close to stability.
Yeah.
So I think that what actually will be reasonably expected is for the intelligentsia of those nations to review like the process, engage with the politically elected leaders. And those leaders should actually become leaders of the people. But of course, when you have erring leaders and African Union and ECOWAS cannot call them to, to order, it creates like a justification, by the coup plotters. Howbeit, from experience for those nations that are likely to repeat the same process, because these are like almost like same nation all the time from the 1950s, they carry it to the next decade, trying out any new thing, bringing up the same thing, and nothing really is changing. So I am concerned that that may not be the solution that we need right now in Africa. But of course, we need leadership. We need to strengthen democracy. And the strength of democracy would be that transparency, good leadership, good management of the economy, freedom of the press, and of course, there should be like that promotion of the citizens' right. Citizens should be able to have the right to elect their leaders. And when such things are also done, I mean, the electoral bodies and institutions should be strong enough to, to build that confidence in people. Once there is that confidence in people, as we can see in other nations, with over 200 years democracy, 100 years democracy, this is not the way democracy is played in other nations, where, like, momentarily, the next question is not if, but when. So we are not asking if these things will happen in those nations, but when is it likely to happen? And I don't think Africa should become like, should continue being the epicenter of Q, right? As though like we are the only people that have democracy, or as though Q is actually an integral part of a healthy democracy. I don't think so.
Okay.
Please, I want to quickly ask this question concerning the influence of the elephant in the room, Western influence. The fact that there's the recent coup are taking place in Francophone countries. Most of these coups are followed with the Russian Wagner group implementing a show of force to support the military the countries that carry out coup. The military is being supported by Wagner group to instate whatever power they want to do there. How are we going to address the fact that Africa seems like a pawn in between the Western world's, whatever they want to do, they are thrown from Francophone to Russia and into China. How do we address that? How can AU properly address it?
In all honesty, if the AU has been proactive enough to call a spade and not a famine implement, I mean, this unholy alliance of French through France-Afrique for continued grip, strong grip on their former colonies, it's really very visible. I mean, French, we are not the only colonial masters. So why do you have a situation we use up till now? You still have some countries in Africa that use the CFA franc. French decides everything, and then you have to bank like a substantial, percentage of your money in France. And when you want to borrow the same money, you borrow that at an interest. So there has been that dissatisfaction. And if it was longer addressed, I mean, it should be like that of like a bilateral relationship that is really very beneficial to both parties. So I think if France was cautious enough, and if AU addressed that issue to make that, to combat that relationship from being oppressive, Russia would not have been an alternative in any way. Because you can imagine like the same people that are saying, oh, we are condemning those that have held power for too long, who don't have institutional process, and are the ones commending Russia for invading Ukraine, right? So there wouldn't be like any rationale, except the fact that, oh, my enemy's, my friend's enemy, right? My enemy's enemy is my friend. So that is what I see like that is playing out in this particular case. And of course, you know that in global politics, we have like the spheres of influence. I mean, the nations that serve as like covers. So one of the things why the new turn on this coup in Africa is really very risky is that the spheres of influence vis-a-vis the US and its allies, China and its allies, and of course Russia, are now finding Africa as a battleground. And guess what? They continue the Cold War in African soil, and experience shows that any place where this war is continued, they suffer. When two elephants fight the grasses, they suffer. And Africa must not remain an experimental ground for anything evil, for anything bad. We must progress as a continent, and to do that, we should be able to engage. The very essence of forming these regional bodies, and of course continental bodies, is to collectively form a common front to negotiate the future of Africa. But regrettably, we could say that they have not achieved those diplomatic objectives for setting those common front.
Yes, so the second thing is, in dealing as ECOWAS and as AU, especially with the Niger coup, in responding to the coup, we're blowing quite hot, we will militarily instill the democratic government back. And I'm saying, do we really have the military force to instill any democracy within Africa? Can ECOWAS do it? Can the AU do it? And if we cannot, these rebels, I would say, would know that. So really, what is our power? What's our strength to be able to instill democracy within Africa?
In all honesty, also apart from like this coup that has been happening in Africa, West Africa also has been renowned for banditry, challenges of terrorism. So you already have a lot that is happening, and you need like integral cooperation, security cooperation to tackle your challenges. But then when you not even have you're trying to, fight a common enemy, and you also in the course of trying to fight a common enemy, you are trying to make enemies of yourself, then that can only lead to further disintegration of the region. We already have a lot we are confronting. And of course, if you look at the modus operandi of ECOWAS, when you impose sanction, the essence of it would be to now give room for diplomatic engagement. Those nations are sovereign nations, trying to leave the common crisis we're already fighting in West Africa to focus on one nation, and in 16 things is done this way or the other, might not at the end of the day bring the sustainability we need. So I think our leaders in West Africa and Africa also need to come back, redefine democracy to ourselves and tell ourselves, we want to have democratic Africa, not a hybrid, not authoritarian states that are, parading as democracy, so that you don't give room for military that thinks they can do it better. Because I'm just wondering, I was just thinking, I'm saying, what if the military actually thinks and say, well, these guys are actually practicing military rule under the guise of democracy, while we are the ones wearing uniform? I think it's just safe now for us to step in, right? It's just safe now for us to step in. And that's what you literally see, because they play in the cycle of the people. Whenever you see such things, part of the thing that actually boosted the morale of the soldiers is when they gauge the temperature of the citizens. And that is why, most of these coups, we begin to see celebration. But I think the civilian rule in Africa can do better.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chukwuma Okenwe, for joining us this morning. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your thoughts on this.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's all we can take on today's show. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.